This morning, you woke up. Maybe you checked your phone, made coffee, complained about something stupid. Just a normal day. A completely unremarkable Tuesday or Thursday or whatever today is for you. But here's the thing nobody tells you. The fact that you woke up this morning, that you exist at all, is not normal. It's not guaranteed. And it almost didn't happen. Not because of anything you did, not because of your parents or their parents or anything in recorded history. It goes back much further than that. 74,000 years ago, something happened on this planet that nearly ended the entire human story. Not just a war, not a famine, not a disease. Something so catastrophic that when it was over, you could fit every surviving human being on Earth into a single small town. And somehow, the story didn't end there. What happened next is the reason you're watching this right now. Before we get to the disaster, we need to talk about who was alive when it hit. Because most people get this part completely wrong. When you hear 74,000 years ago, your brain probably pictures something barely human, grunting, hunched over, dragging a club around. That's not what they were. The humans alive 74,000 years ago were biologically identical to you. Same brain, same wiring, same capacity for language, for love, for grief, for music, same ability to lie awake at night, wondering if they were doing enough with their life. Which, honestly, might be the most human thing of all. If you took a newborn from 74,000 years ago and raised them in a modern city, they'd grow up, get a job, stress about money, and you would never know the difference. They were not primitive. They were just early. They had already survived so much. Droughts, ice ages, predators. They'd learned to make fire, hunt together, look after each other when things got bad. They were figuring it out. Total population? Somewhere between 100,000 and a few 100,000 people, scattered across Africa in small, isolated groups. Not billions, not millions. Just a few 100,000 people on an entire planet trying to make it work. And then the sky broke. What happened next is almost impossible to picture, because nothing in modern human history comes close. In what is now the island of Sumatra, Indonesia, a supervolcano called Toba erupted. Not a regular volcano, a supervolcano. The explosion was roughly 5,000 times more powerful than Mount St. Helens. It blasted so much ash and debris into the atmosphere that the sun, the actual sun, was blocked out. Not for days, not for weeks, for years. The planet went cold. The plants and animals people depended on for food collapsed. Ecosystems that had existed for thousands of years were just gone. And the humans? Genetic research, the kind that traces DNA back through thousands of generations, suggests the human population may have crashed to somewhere between 3,000 and 10,000 people. Some estimates go lower, much lower. Think about that number. Really sit with it. 3,000 people, maybe fewer. That's not a city. That's not even a neighborhood. That's the size of a single high school. That was all of us. Every human alive today, 8 billion people across every country, every culture, every language, traces back to a group so small that if you gathered them all in one place, they wouldn't fill a small concert venue. They were cold. They were starving. Most of them were dying. And here's the question nobody has ever been able to fully answer. How did any of them make it? Here's where the story gets complicated, in the best possible way. Scientists don't fully agree on what happened next. The Toba catastrophe theory, the idea that Toba nearly wiped us out, was first proposed in the 1990s. For a long time, it was the dominant explanation for why human genetic diversity is so surprisingly low. But some archaeological sites in South Africa and India tell a different story. A few locations show signs of continuous human habitation right through the eruption. Like someone looked at the apocalypse and said, yeah, we're staying. So which is it? Near total extinction or devastating but survivable? Honest answer, we don't fully know. And scientists are still arguing about it, which, if you've ever met a scientist, will not surprise you. But here's the thing, whether 3,000 people made it through or 10,000, the real question is the same. What did those people do that kept our entire species alive? And the answer completely changes how you understand this story. Here's the twist. For a long time, the Toba story has been told as a tragedy, a near miss. Humanity almost didn't make it. But some researchers now believe the real story is the opposite. The disaster didn't almost kill humanity. The disaster might have created created humanity as we know it. Here's why. When a population crashes to almost nothing, under extreme pressure, with no safety net, something happens that doesn't happen in stable, comfortable times. You adapt, fast, or you don't survive. The groups that made it through Toba had no choice but to be more creative, more cooperative, more willing to try things that had never been tried before. The old world was gone. Old patterns were useless. Old food sources, gone. Old routes, blocked. They had to invent their way out, constantly, under life or death pressure. And when the climate finally stabilized, slowly, over generations, these weren't the same people who'd existed before Toba. They were sharper, more bonded, more capable of the long-range thinking and complex cooperation that defines what we now call modern human behavior. And what followed was unlike anything before it in human history. Our ancestors didn't just recover from Toba, they exploded outward, spreading from Africa into Asia, into Europe, eventually reaching every corner of the planet in what is, geologically speaking, a sprint. The thing that almost ended us may have been the thing that finally built us into something capable of filling the world. Pressure didn't break us, pressure forged us. But that's not even the wildest part. Because of Toba, because of that crash, that bottleneck, that terrifying near-zero moment, every single human being alive today is almost genetically identical. And I mean that in a way that's hard to appreciate until you hear the comparison. Two chimpanzees, picked at random from the same forest in Central Africa, will have more genetic variation between them than any two humans picked at random from anywhere on Earth. You and a stranger in rural Mongolia. You and someone deep in the Amazon. You and a person who has never left a remote village in sub-Saharan Africa. More similar, at the DNA level, than two chimps living in the same trees. We are, genetically speaking, one of the least diverse species on the planet. And the reason is Toba. Because we all came from the same small group, the same desperate, cold, starving, impossibly resilient group of people who refused to disappear. Every language ever spoken, every civilization ever built, every song ever written, every person who ever loved someone or lost someone or held a child for the first time, all of it came from those few thousand people. Which means that person you passed on the street today, the one you didn't even look at, they're your cousin. Not metaphorically, in the most literal genetic sense of the word. We are all, every single one of us, the children of the same survivors. Tonight, the sun is going to go down, and somewhere on Earth, 8 billion people are going to go about their lives, making dinner, calling their parents, arguing about things that don't matter, falling asleep without a second thought. None of them will think about Toba. None of them will think about the few thousand people who sat in the dark, in the cold, in a world that had gone almost completely quiet and kept going anyway. We don't know their names. We have no record of their faces. Nobody wrote down what they said to each other on the worst nights. But they did something that, statistically, they had almost no right to do. They survived. And then they had children. And those children survived. And so it went, one fragile generation at a time, through ice and drought and predator and disease, for 74,000 years. Until one morning, you woke up, made coffee, checked your phone, had a completely unremarkable day. A day that almost never happened. A day that someone who has no name, no grave, no monument, spent everything they had to make possible.